Imagine living in a city where water doesn't magically appear in the tap. In the first centuries of ancient Rome, the people depended on the waters of the Tiber, deep wells and cisterns that stored rain. But with the city's accelerated growth, these resources became scarce and life became more complicated. Pollution invaded the river, and clean water, this precious thing, became increasingly rare. And it was in this scenario, where every drop counted, that the Romans, always with their minds sharp for solutions, decided it was time to change the game. Aqueducts then emerged, not just as mere water channels, but as true landmarks of innovation. These works, which cut through valleys and climbed mountains, brought not only relief from thirst, but also a new pulse to urban life. Rome then saw itself reborn. Fountains gushed with life, public baths became meeting centers, and even the grandiose battles in the Colosseum became more spectacular with the water that ran freely. Today, we will delve into this fascinating legacy, understand the secrets of these constructions that seem to defy nature itself, and uncover how an ancient civilization learned to tame water, taking it wherever it wanted. Stay with us, and let's explore together the paths of this ancient engineering that shaped the destiny of Rome. But before we continue, just check if you're already subscribed, because on this channel, we'll bring a series of videos like this one that will help you discover, study, and explore the Roman Empire. At the beginning of it all, Rome looked to the Tiber, the deep wells and cisterns, as salvation for its thirst. However, as the city grew relentlessly, these old solutions began to unravel before their eyes. The wells dwindled, garbage took over the riverbanks, and the sewage poisoned what was once a source of life. The simple act of obtaining clean water turned into a challenge, a daily struggle, a race against the contamination that threatened to devour the city. And with that came not only inconvenience, but a real danger to everyone's health. As the population grew, more public baths appeared, and the thirst for clean water grew. Increasingly, the city felt the weight of its expansion, and the problems only grew. Survival was at stake, and it was not just a question of convenience, but of keeping the city alive and healthy. Rome needed to act. It needed a solution that was not palliative, but definitive. Known for its ability to face and overcome challenges, Rome knew it needed to think beyond. Its engineers, masters in the art of shaping stone and water, felt the pressure to create something that would guarantee a constant and pure flow of water, which could quench the insatiable thirst of a growing city. It was not just a question of ingenuity, but a question of survival, and Rome would not settle for anything less than perfection. When the water problem threatened to become a tragedy, the Romans knew they needed to act intelligently and boldly. They looked beyond their borders, closely observing how other peoples faced the same struggle. The Greeks already mastered the art of digging tunnels and building surface canals, while the Etruscans had an impressive skill in creating drainage systems. From the Near East came stories of clay canals and bridges that crossed vast distances to bring water where it was needed most. With these examples as a starting point, Roman engineers began to dream. It was not enough to copy. Rome needed something grand, something that reflected its ambition and power. They wanted a system that would be the ultimate answer to the city's thirst, that would bring pure, constant water from distant springs to the beating heart of Rome. It was then that the idea of aqueducts took shape, a simple but ingenious solution. Letting the earth itself work in favor, letting the water flow naturally, guided only by the gentle slope of the land. But to turn this dream into reality, more than ideas were needed. It was necessary to find sources of water that were beyond reliable, that were true jewels hidden in the mountains, where the purity of the water was undeniable. From these sources, the Romans traced with surgical precision the route that the water would follow to the city. Every curve, every descent was carefully calculated. The water needed to flow lightly, without rushing, moved only by the force of gravity. Any deviation, any mistake, and the flow could be interrupted, leaving the city thirsty. There was no room for failure. Rome demanded perfection, and its engineers were determined to deliver it. After understanding the needs and analyzing the possibilities, the Romans decided it was time to put their ideas into practice. The first major step was taken in 312 BC, with the construction of Aqua Appia under the supervision of Consul Appio Claudio Cego. This aqueduct was an innovative solution for the time, bringing water from a source approximately 16 kilometers away to Rome. Aqua Appia mainly used underground tunnels to transport water, which offered several advantages. By keeping the aqueduct underground, the Romans protected the water from possible contamination and enemy attacks. This underground structure was not only safer, but also helped preserve the integrity of the system in the event of conflicts. Although the Aqua Appia initially supplied only a small part of the city, it demonstrated the effectiveness and potential of Roman techniques. This first aqueduct was a proof of concept, showing that investment in water supply systems could bring enormous benefits to growth and quality of life in Rome. From this pioneering work, the Romans continued to expand and improve their aqueducts, taking water further and further and in greater quantities. With the initial success of Aqua Appia, the Romans realized that aqueducts were the solution to their water supply problems and began building more such structures. Around 170 years later, in 144 BC, Aqua Marcia was inaugurated, a work that represented a milestone in Roman engineering. This aqueduct was not only longer, stretching more than 90 kilometers, but it also introduced new technical advances, such as the construction of long sections elevated on arches. The Aqua Marcia bows were a significant innovation. They allowed water to travel across varied terrain and reach higher areas of the city where other structures could not reach. These monumental arches were not only functional, but also became iconic symbols of Roman power and engineering, being used in future constructions both in Rome and elsewhere in the empire. In addition to the arches, the Aqua Marcia had a much greater capacity to carry water compared to the Aqua Appia. This meant that a much larger amount of water could be supplied daily, benefiting a greater number of inhabitants and allowing for the construction of more public baths and fountains. The success of Aqua Marcia reaffirmed the importance of aqueducts to Rome and led to the development of more supply systems throughout the city and the Roman provinces. It was also during the period of expansion of aqueducts that Aqua Virgo appeared, built in 19 BC, under the government of Augustus, the first emperor of Rome. This aqueduct was famous for its ability to supply water to the city's thermal baths and fountains, including the famous baths of Agrippa. Aqua Virgo demonstrated how aqueducts not only met Rome's basic needs, but also contributed to the luxury and leisure of urban life, allowing for grandiose events such as the Naumachis in the Colosseum, where the arena was flooded to simulate battles. Naval. The construction of a Roman aqueduct began with detailed planning. Engineers first needed to identify a clean, reliable water source, usually located in mountainous areas. Then, they designed a route that would take the water to the city, overcoming natural obstacles such as hills, valleys, and rivers. To do this, they used advanced engineering techniques, such as the construction of arched bridges, underground tunnels, and inverted siphons, which allowed water to be transported over great distances and across challenging terrain. A fundamental aspect in the construction of aqueducts was the constant slope of the canal. The water needed to flow naturally, moved only by the force of gravity. Maintaining this adequate slope was a technical challenge, as any error could compromise the water flow, causing stagnation or preventing it from reaching its destination. Therefore, Roman engineers needed near-perfect precision when designing and building these structures. Along most of their route, aqueducts were built underground, which helped reduce costs and protect them from damage and sabotage. However, at certain points, it was necessary to build more visible and monumental structures, such as the famous arches, to cross valleys or rivers. These engineering works not only fulfilled a practical function, but also impressed with their grandeur, demonstrating the power and technical capacity of the Romans. As the aqueduct network expanded, the Romans developed sophisticated systems to ensure water was distributed efficiently within cities. One of the key elements of this system were the castella, or distribution towers, which regulated the flow of water. The water reached these towers and from there was distributed through smaller channels to different parts of the city, feeding both public fountains and thermal baths, and in some cases, even the homes of wealthier people. These residents paid a fee to have running water in their homes, which made their lives easier and showed a certain level of comfort and social status. In addition to castella, the Romans also used settling tanks, which were structures where water flowed slowly, allowing sediment and debris to settle to the bottom. These tanks helped ensure that the water distributed was clean and suitable for consumption. Located at strategic points, often in elevated areas, these tanks used gravity to separate impurities, ensuring a relatively pure water supply. These technical solutions showed not only the skill of Roman engineers, but also the attention to detail they had to ensure the aqueduct system worked efficiently and reliably. Even with the technology of the time, the Romans managed to create a water supply system that, in many aspects, surpassed the standards of some modern cities. Maintaining the aqueducts was essential to ensuring that Rome had a constant and safe supply of water. To this end, Rome created the position of curator aquarum, the supervisor of the waters, who was responsible for the entire network of aqueducts. These supervisors monitored the integrity of structures and water quality, in addition to coordinating the necessary actions for maintenance and repairs. One of its main challenges was combating fraud and water diversion, which have become common due to the size and complexity of the system. The frauds often involved landowners and even aqueduct employees who, in search of profits, made clandestine connections to divert water before it reached its official destination. These illegal actions were facilitated by corruption. Officials in charge of maintaining and monitoring the system often accepted bribes in exchange for allowing or ignoring these deviations. Locations further away from central control or less supervised areas, such as the outskirts of Rome and rural regions, were particularly prone to these illegal diversions. When discovered, both corrupt officials and owners who benefited from clandestine connections faced serious consequences. Punishments for these crimes included heavy fines, confiscation of property, and, in more serious cases, imprisonment. Furthermore, officials caught in corruption were removed from their positions and, depending on the severity of the infraction, could be sentenced to even more severe penalties, including forced labor. To combat these fraudulent practices, aquarum curators carried out frequent audits and inspections, often by surprise, to catch offenders in the act. Frontino, one of the most famous aqueduct supervisors, implemented a rigorous system of control, accurately recording water flows and authorized distribution points, making it easier to identify deviations. He also encouraged anonymous reporting, creating an environment where corruption and fraud were constantly watched. The inspection included not only checking the aqueduct structures, but also a detailed analysis of water distribution records, looking for inconsistencies that could indicate deviations. This surveillance was possible thanks to the tireless work of the Servi Pubblici, who guaranteed the daily maintenance and integrity of the system, acting as an extension of the eyes and ears of the aquarum curators. These maintenance teams were essential, especially in less supervised areas, where the risks of deviations and sabotage were greater. The Servi Pubblici, or public slaves, played a key role in the daily maintenance of Rome's aqueducts. Unlike private slaves, they belonged to the state and were essential to ensuring the continuous and efficient functioning of water systems. His responsibility included tasks such as tunneling, canal construction, and structural repairs. In addition, they were responsible for cleaning the settling tanks, removing accumulated sediments, and monitoring the water flow to identify possible problems. The Servi Pubblici were also involved in administrative operations, such as controlling materials used in aqueducts and supervising emergency repairs. Their contribution was vital to the maintenance of Rome's hydraulic infrastructure, ensuring that the water supply continued to meet the needs of the city's growing population. The efficiency and dedication of these workers were key to the success and durability of Roman aqueducts. As aqueducts became an essential part of Roman life, their impact extended beyond the simple need for water. They became symbols of power, civilization, and technical superiority. So proud were the Romans of their engineering achievements that they decided to immortalize the aqueducts on their coins. These coins not only represented Roman dominance over nature, but also the ability to create an infrastructure that far surpassed the achievements of other ancient civilizations. Frontinus, one of Rome's most respected aqueduct supervisors, often compared Roman works to the pyramids of Egypt. In his writings, he highlighted that although the pyramids were impressive structures, they were, in the Roman view, little more than useless monuments. In contrast, Rome's aqueducts had a practical functionality, supplying the city with vital water and directly improving the quality of life of its citizens. This comparison reinforced the belief that the Romans were not only great conquerors, but also leaders in the art of improving urban life. Roman aqueducts were not just a solution to a water supply problem. They became symbols of the Romans' power and capacity for innovation, leaving a legacy that lasts to this day. From the humble need to bring clean water to their cities, the Romans created one of the most impressive infrastructure networks in ancient history. If any point in this video made you curious to know more, don't hesitate to leave your questions in the comments. Your feedback is essential as we continue to bring you more fascinating content about ancient Rome and its world-changing innovations. And if you liked this video, don't forget to like, share with your friends, and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. Your participation helps us continue exploring and sharing the incredible story of ancient Rome. Until next time.